Oh, Reddit. There's some certified fire. Okay, I'll talk about this. There's 2 certified fire posts on the Reddit, and I want to reward them because, like, you have to show attention to the good stuff if you want more of the good stuff. First post, right here. Made everyone at the TOC, which is, what, something of command? Tactical Operations Command? Watch Marketing Monday while on deployment. This is hype. This is insane, dude. So, by the way, if you are young and you don't know what to do with your life, join the military. All it is hanging out and watching H-Rock VODs. This is a fact. Like, do not worry. Sign up right now. Go deploy. Because most of it is just hanging out with the boys, chilling, eating food, watching H-Rock VODs. It's the coolest job in the world. There's no downside. So this is a really fun post. Thanks for sending it. I'm glad you guys are watching it. It's good because I want as many H-Rock viewers to be in the military as possible so that when we start the H-Rock revolution, we'll have a lot of people in different parts of the government that can all, you know, it's almost like Hydra. It's almost like Hydra. If you're ever in an elevator with somebody, just say, "Hail Glizzy." And if they say it back, then you know that you're part then you know you're part of the secret. Anyway, good post. The comments are all about how this is part of the Clancyville private military. Clancyville private military looks like a cool job. TOC is Targeted Operations of Clancyville. Holy shit, wait a minute. These guys are actually not part of the US military. They're Clancy operatives. No wonder they're watching me. It's because they're planning an invasion. And then the other post, you might think it's this one. Imagine if H-Rock got a low taper fade. You might think that's the great post I'm talking about, but no, actually, I think that one's kind of stupid. Not the post where somebody posted Patrick Dumont, the new owner of the Mavericks, saying the Luka trade was a long-term decision right after the trade happened when their GM, Nico Harrison, said it was a win-now move. Is it long-term or is it win-now? Get your story straight, you corrupt son of a bitch. It's this one right here. So this guy, Fia Biker. So I made a clip the other day where I talked about this sort of financial pyramid where at the bottom is crypto and meme stocks. And there's people that just say really simple phrases like time in the market beats time in the market, dollar cost averages. And I just talked about how they often fall into traps, right? This guy wanted to add more nuance to what I was saying. He has experience. He's a financial planner. He wanted to add more. Is his title incendiary? No, it's just thoughts on dollar cost averaging. He said, I've been thinking about the take. He tries to explain my position. He adds some nuance, adds some bonus to it. Of course, it's such a good post that it got no upvotes. What he should have said was, I think H-Rock is stupid. There's, put that in topic, get 600 votes, have no nuance, no source, no background. That would have done great. But him actually writing down sincere thoughts, incredible. Of course that gets no upvotes. Anyway, I wanted to explain my thoughts a little bit more because I think this guy and me agree on essentially everything. So either my clip didn't fully explain my thoughts or maybe this guy misinterpreted me, but I want to explain. And I want to bring out the pyramid again. So basically the thought is this. For a long time, when people were planning for their retirement, you know, you're earning money during your life. You're working a job, you're saving money, and you're putting it away for retirement. People used to be pretty safe with how they allocated that money. So you might do like 60% of your money in a big diversified basket of stocks from around the world, like a world ETF. So it would be stocks from all different markets, emerging markets, European markets, American markets, Asian markets. So like basically what you're betting on is that the economy of the world will go up over time, which is almost assuredly true, right? And they would put 40%, called a 60-40 portfolio, into bonds. This is like, you know, government debt, IOUs from the government. Bonds are extremely safe. They get a guaranteed flat return. Right now it's about, I don't know, it's 4.5% or something for a 10-year bond. Over time, people realized that in the world ETF, the outperformer was the American stocks. The American stocks recently, especially in the last couple decades, have been doing really well. So a lot of people started to switch to a 60-40 portfolio where it's like this. So they crossed this out and they went 60% S&P 500, 40% bonds. This is a pretty common retirement portfolio for a while. And so it's like now you're getting even higher returns because this is doing pretty well, but you're a little bit more focused on American stocks specifically. So now you're really focused on American stocks. So if American stocks underperform any moment, well then, you know, there's some risk. but it's been doing so well. Why would you pick this boring one? We could have this one, okay? And then, especially millennials, I'm talking mostly to millennials. This is where the big trend has been. Millennials, like me, people my age or like late 20s, have really abandoned this altogether, and they are now doing 100% S&P 500. And also, in that time, the S&P 500 went from like a pretty diverse mix of 500 companies to being heavily market cap weighted to 7 stocks, 7 tech stocks. So basically, their retirement went from a pretty diversified mix across the world to entirely focused on 7 tech stocks. Do you understand? But they keep using the same cliche phrases that like a money manager from the 60s might say about time in the market beats timing the market and dollar cost average. But you've drastically increased your risk because you're chasing higher return. And if you read like R stocks or R investing, they'll ask this question like, why do I pick S&P 500 over the world? When it's like, well, it makes more. And one of the fundamental rules of finance is that if you're getting a higher return, there's higher risk. If S&P 500 is returning 10, 20%, it's because there's higher risk. And if you ever bring this up to people, if you ever try to point out the hypocrisy of what they're saying, they get real emotional about it. They get angry. They think these truisms they've locked onto are like true in all situations at all times. And they hate to hear it. My second part of my point, all this aside, is that many people, I also need to explain, if you guys don't know what dollar cost averaging is, it basically means if I have $1,000, instead of putting $1,000 into the market right now, I might do 200 a month, 200 every month. And I never stop. 200, 200, 200, 200. And that way, if the stock's up, I'm buying. If the stock's down, I'm buying. I just keep buying. I'm just steadily, I'm not like trying to time the market. Dollar cost averaging is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I have no problem with it. My problem is the idea that just dollar cost averaging reduces your risk. You're safe. You'll always go up. What you're investing in still matters. The diversification of your portfolio still matters. Okay, but the recent performance will average out and they'll likely get average 8% over time. That's another great question, okay? Every time people say that the S&P 500 is guaranteed to give you 8-10% a year, they reference the last 100 years where like, okay, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, whatever, but it's up. And that's true. But what's worth understanding on a deeper level is, first of all, how the index has changed over time to be heavily weighted towards a few tech stocks. So the risk is getting higher and higher and higher. That's first thing. The second thing is that all of this 100 years of outperformance is at the same time that America has been the undisputed #1 global hegemon, the #1 global financial superpower. America has been on top and dictating the global order and all financial flows for the entirety of this 100 years. If you were to do this same experiment for the 1800s, for like the London financial markets, it would be the same thing. But what happened to London? Okay? Around the end of the 1800s and the start of the 1900s, the UK lost its premier spot as the #1 undisputed center of financial flows. And all of that moved to New York. And London equities underperformed significantly. It's not like it's just a guaranteed fact of life that American stocks will always go up at a high percent every year for the future forever. It is a unique quirk of this part of history. And as we enter into a more multipolar era, you can't just point to that and say, well, that worked then, it'll always work forever. You have to be a little more, a little more insightful or a little more thoughtful about the reality of the risk you're taking. Now, I'm not your financial manager. You can do whatever the fuck you want. Most people will tell you just dollar cost average and S&P 500 and shut your hair off. Fine. I don't care. If you do that, you should be happy with it. Don't let me judge you. But I just want to point out that things in the entire world are changing. Things in the financial markets are changing. And especially right now, you're putting so much of your bet on the Magnificent Seven. If someone told me they're investing dollar cost average into the world index, and that's the majority of their retirement savings, I would say just buy and hold. That sounds super safe. If you're telling me the world economy will grow over time, I agree with you. If it doesn't, we're f***ed anyway. But if you keep using the same phrases, but get more and more concentrated on your risk, I'm gonna point out the flaw in that logic. And I do think having some portion of your thing allocated to bonds, especially as you get older, is a good idea. And this guy mentions that as well. This financial planner, who again, it seems like he really knows his stuff. He talks about glide paths where over time, you slowly get less and less stocks and more bonds as you get older to reduce your risk. That's great. But right now in America, we have boomers with their entire net worth piled into the S&P 500, which is piled entirely into NVIDIA. Do you understand? Like, these boomers could have a huge chunk of their retirement down 20, 30% right before they retire. It's crazy. And I'm not going to feel bad for pointing it out. I know it contradicts the basic 3 phrases you know. There's something that needs to be said. That's my thought process. I don't really care how you invest. And I think this guy has great advice. And I do 100% believe that you should not be out there picking stocks or trying to time the market. That's true. But you should also recognize, like, you should be invested. But you should be invested in something that is, if you're going to be diversified, you should be actually diversified. Actually broadly exposed to a bigger than just the American market tech stocks. If you're going to do the whole just buy and hold, buy from a whole life thing. Okay, last thing I want to say. No one seemed to bring this up because I got some comments about the dollar cost average thing. They all focus on dollar cost averaging, which is the part I have no problem with. Here's the next thing. The last thing I want to say is the idea of dollar cost averaging is that every single month you have to put in the same amount. Whether the stock market's up or whether it's down, you have to put in that $200 every month or whatever. You have to just consistently do it. Otherwise, it doesn't work. If you don't do it every month, you're actually timing the market. You're not trying to like build over time. In real life, people that say they love dollar cost average love to do it when things are going up. They pay it every month when the stock market's up and times are good and they have their job. And then when the stock market crashes and they lose their job, or their house gets too expensive or whatever, then they stop putting the money in the market. That's when it's most important of all, because then you're buying things cheap. You're buying it expensive here. So people can say all they want. Oh, I never time the market. I'm at a dollar cost average. But in the reality is it's very hard to do in an actual downturn. It's much harder than everyone pretends it is. You have to really understand that you're actually committing to it and don't just say it the way that most people on Reddit do and then panic instantly. So I just want to be clear that I don't think most people have the emotional stomach or the job security to be doing this as consistently as they like. So they should take even less risk. They should have less risk in their portfolio because you're probably not going to dollar cost average the way you think you will when a downturn. You're probably not going to keep buying the exact same amount. You might lose pay. You might have a job that pays less. Do you understand? That's my point. That's my point. I'm sorry to crash out a bit, but it's very important to me. Like, this is like, I'm trying to sum up the thoughts I have about all this that nobody seems to bring up. Everyone seems to be blindly ignoring the risk. And anytime you try to like bring this up or like point out the obvious logical inconsistencies, they just fall back on these same phrases and get real defensive, real emotional. I don't care what you do. I want this to be pointed out. Anyway, this guy's post was great. Long story short, this guy's post was excellent. It's worth reading. It's very smart. I agree with this, the way he laid this out, the way the pyramid's laid out. And I really want to appreciate Faya Biker for writing it this way. I want to reward this. This is awesome. This is like the way it should be approached because I think people learn something from it, but it's not like this nitpicky Redditor trying to prove how smart they are. You know what I'm saying? It's just a human being sharing their experience. And I think when you do it that way, you're going to find we don't actually disagree on very much. So thumbs up. Anyway, that's my point.